The furnace stopped working on the coldest night of the year. Of course it did. Outside, snow was piling up along the driveway, and the temperature had already dropped below 20 degrees. Inside the house, the air felt colder by the minute. My wife, Laura, was out of town visiting her sister for the weekend, so I was alone dealing with it. I checked the thermostat. Nothing. I reset the breaker. Still nothing. Finally, I did what everyone does when they're out of options. I called a furnace repair company. They said a technician could come the next morning. By the time he arrived, the house felt like a refrigerator. The technician was a quiet guy in his early 30s named Mike. He wore a thick work jacket and carried a heavy tool bag. "Morning," he said as he stepped inside. "Let's see what's going on." I led him down to the basement, where the furnace sat humming weakly. Mike crouched beside it and began inspecting wires and valves. "Looks like the ignition system failed," he said after a few minutes. "Not uncommon in cold weather." "Can you fix it today?" I asked. "Should be able to," he replied. While he worked, I went upstairs to make coffee. About 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mike. I frowned slightly. He was downstairs. "Why text me?" I opened the message. "Mike, sir, there's a locked room down here. The furnace pipe runs through the wall into it." I stared at the screen for a moment. A locked room? That was strange. As far as I knew, the basement only had the furnace area and a small storage closet. I typed back, "Me, locked room? What do you mean?" 3 dots appeared. Then another message came through. "Mike, there's a solid steel door behind some shelves. It's definitely not a closet." A cold feeling ran down my spine. I walked back toward the basement stairs. Halfway down, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Mike. "Mike, sir, I don't want to alarm you, but there's something else." I stopped on the stairs. "Me, what is it?" The reply came a few seconds later. "Mike, there's a keypad lock on the door, and it looks like it's been used recently." My heart started beating faster. Laura and I had bought this house 2 years ago. The inspection report never mentioned a locked room, and I had never seen a steel door in the basement. I slowly walked the rest of the way down. Mike stood near the furnace, looking uneasy. Behind him, the shelving unit had been moved slightly aside, and there it was, a heavy gray metal door set into the concrete wall, with a digital keypad. I stared at it in disbelief. "What is that?" I asked. Mike shook his head. "Sir, I thought you might know." The keypad light blinked faintly. Someone had used it recently. My stomach tightened. Laura never mentioned this. I murmured. Mike hesitated. "There's one more thing," he said quietly. I looked at him. "What?" He pointed toward the bottom of the door. "Do you see that?" I crouched down. At first, I thought it was dirt. Then I realized what it actually was. Scratch marks. From the inside. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I kept staring at the scratches near the bottom of the metal door. They weren't random marks either. They were deep, uneven grooves like something or someone had tried to claw their way out. Mike shifted his weight uneasily. "Sir, did the previous owners mention anything about this room?" "No," I said quietly. "Nothing." When Laura and I bought the house 2 years ago, the inspection had been routine. The basement was listed as unfinished storage space. No hidden rooms. No steel doors. Just a normal house. At least, that's what we thought. Mike rubbed the back of his neck. "I've worked in a lot of basements," he said carefully, "but this isn't normal construction." "What do you mean?" I asked. He pointed at the door frame. "It's reinforced, industrial-grade steel, the kind used in safe rooms or vaults." A cold chill spread through my chest. Could it be a panic room? I suggested. Mike leaned closer to the keypad. "Maybe, but panic rooms usually open from the inside. He pointed again at the scratch marks. Those look like someone trying to get out. I stood up slowly. The basement suddenly felt smaller, colder. How could I not know about this? I muttered. Mike glanced toward the stairs. Does your wife know about it? I shook my head. At least, I don't think so. But even as I said it, a small voice in my mind whispered something uncomfortable. Laura had handled most of the paperwork when we bought the house. She was the one who spoke with the realtor more often. She was the one who organized the inspection. I had trusted her completely. Mike interrupted my thoughts. Sir, there's also something else. I looked back at him. What now? He crouched beside the furnace pipe. This vent line runs directly into that room, he said, which means air is circulating inside. Okay, I said slowly. But look at this, he continued. He pointed at a small secondary valve attached to the pipe. It looked newer than the rest of the system. This valve was installed recently, Mike said, maybe within the last year. My stomach tightened. We've owned the house for 2 years. Mike nodded slowly. Exactly. Silence filled the basement again. I walked toward the metal door. Up close, it looked even heavier than I first thought. The keypad had faint fingerprints on the numbers. The 3 and 7 buttons were slightly more worn than the others. Someone had definitely been using it. And not a long time ago. Do you hear that? Mike whispered suddenly. I froze. At first, I heard nothing. Then, very faintly, a soft humming sound. Not mechanical, more like air moving through a vent. I leaned closer to the door. The metal felt slightly warmer than the surrounding concrete. Mike's voice dropped even lower. Sir, I don't like this. Neither did I. I pulled out my phone and opened Laura's contact. For a moment, I hesitated. Then I called. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. Hey, she said cheerfully. Did the furnace guy fix it? I looked at the steel door in front of me. Not yet. I replied. What's wrong with it? There's something in the basement. I said slowly. She laughed lightly. What do you mean? There's a locked steel room behind the shelves. The line went completely silent for 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. When Laura finally spoke again, her voice sounded different. Tighter. You move the shelves? I felt my pulse quicken. They were already slightly out of place. I said. The technician noticed the door. Another pause. Then she said something that made my skin crawl. You shouldn't touch that room. I looked at Mike. He was watching me closely. Laura, I said slowly, why not? Her voice dropped almost to a whisper. Because you're not supposed to know it exists. A heavy silence filled the basement. Laura, I said carefully, what's inside that room? For several seconds, she didn't answer. When she finally spoke again, the words came out quietly. Nothing, she said, but I had been married to Laura for 8 years, and I knew exactly when she was lying. Behind me, Mike suddenly stiffened. His eyes were fixed on the metal door. Sir, he whispered. I turned. The keypad light had just turned on by itself, and the numbers 3, 7, 3 were lighting up one by one, as if someone on the other side was trying to enter the code.